Gen Z is entering the workforce with very different expectations from previous generations, from well-being and purpose to flexibility and speed. At the same time, employers are inserting AI at all stages of the hiring pipeline, changing how candidates are screened, selected, and even interviewed. So how are these two forces, a new generation and new technology, changing the future of work? Well, to tell us all about it, we're once again joined by Will Lin, director at Page Taiwan, and Laura Dean, chartered occupational psychologist, speaking to us from Sheffield in the UK. Now, Laura, I want to start with you here. Your work looks at well-being and employability. What stands out to you when you look at Gen Z's expectations towards work compared to previous generations?
So I think there's been a lot of bad press and horrible things said about Gen Z, which is really not fair, because we're seeing some overall movements in the workforce generally, and we're just seeing it more clearly with Gen Z. Essentially, Gen Z really value things like psychological safety. They're more open about things like mental health. They're more open about needing accommodations in the workplace. Essentially, they're not tolerating poor leadership in the way that other generations have previously. As a Gen Xer, we were pushed very much to always be striving, attempting to reach the highest levels and, get up the career ladder. Gen Z have really looked at that and gone, actually, my life's more than this. My life's about more than work. It's about work-life balance. It's about having, alignment between my personal values and what's happening in the workplace. Essentially, this idea that they're entitled is really not true at all. It's just that they've stopped accepting bad management.
And it seems to be a running theme, because my generations, millennials, were also called entitled way before Gen Zers, so we did it first. Will, do companies in Taiwan have a preference when they're looking at candidates between generations? Is there a bias against Gen Z?
I think, first of all, I can't agree more on what just Laura shares. We should never see it as a problem. I think we should see it as the generation gap. It's never a problem in one side, but it's with two sides. Take my clients, for example. There are two types of client to dealing with this. I would say to face this trend. I think first group of the clients that they embrace the trend. They try to start a communication between different generations. They try to understand each other's, find out the strength between each other's, and then they try to leverage their strength during their work, during the project. So I think they are more a advanced group of the people. Well, on the other side, and there's some of my clients that they selected to see the things in a short-term way, that they prefer not to hire younger people because they don't really want to deal with the challenge, the problems that they feel like Gen Z think more about themselves, want to find a purpose doing the job instead of commit themselves on the work. So they feel really tired that I need to give you the motivation, I need to give you the purpose. So they decide during the hiring process, recruitment process, they rather interview people with more experience, more seasoned, knowing what they really want, instead of younger people. But I believe 5 years later, 10 years later, we were still facing the same issue. Not just Gen Z. Like the coming 10 years, we are facing group in Alpha. We are going to take adoption on this not problem, again, trends.
Well, Laura, for companies who are struggling with hiring or retaining Gen Z employees, is there anything that they can do to bridge this generational gap, to overcome these biases against Gen Zers, or just make changes to accommodate these changing preferences?
I think the sort of accommodations that you would make would actually be beneficial for the whole workforce, recognizing that work is just a part of people's lives, and that the organisation needs to think about work-life balance, not just in terms of the hours that you're at work, but in terms of ensuring the work brings those additional things that you need, the opportunity to self-actualize, the opportunity to develop, the opportunity to express your values and do things that are important to you in the workplace. Now, that's helpful for retaining all employees and for making all employees happier. Making sure that you have psychological safety is good for everybody, that you feel able to speak out in the workplace. And this isn't just about, it's not just a soft thing about, making people feel good. When you have psychological safety and people are prepared to speak out and have their voices heard, you raise issues within the organisation, which makes the organisation much more productive and strong in the long term as well. So it might feel initially like, oh, well, we have a group of employees who are more likely to complain, but complaining is a good thing. Complaining is how things change, and that's how organizations get stronger, by recognizing where the issues are. So everything that we can do towards supporting all employees as full human beings with their full range of values and needs and desires is going to be helpful for retaining them and improving the organization overall.
Will, these changes, when they happen in Taiwan, do you feel that they are happening fast enough? I mean, as Laura said, everyone would benefit from these changes. So I'm really asking, when are they coming to my workplace?
We're still talking about Gen Z, right?
Gen Z, but just in general, kind of adjustments in the workplace. Some of these things that Laura mentioned are, many consider them wider problems in Taiwanese work culture. Being able to speak up, having this feeling of psychological safety, things are changing in Taiwan. Do you feel that they're changing fast enough?
It's definitely changing now, but from my point of view and from the feedback from my clients, actually we expect to see it even faster. I think employers haven't adopted much, actions to facing this changing yet. So I would suggest that we take this seriously. Not just bottom up. I think top down is quite important, because I would say, in compare with some multinational company, there are some domestic company that we see things like more surely. When we see things surely, we just don't face it. We just try to, like I mentioned earlier, we hire people not junior, but we tend to hire senior people. So in this case, I would suggest that we all embrace this and make it a change, like Laura says, how we can really create a environment, with safety. Everyone can speak up and learn from the company, more advanced, especially there are few HR experts in the market that they did quite well, that they do quality workshop within the company. They want a different group of people that say Y, Z. They share their background, how they born up, how they grew up, how they started to enter the work environment. So they start to know each other. Then, based on the background, they can understand that, okay, so that's the difference. That's not a bias. So after that, they can try to find out their strengths. For example, for Y, or let's say senior people, their strength is that they got strong loyalty, they got strong working experience and connection. Younger group can definitely learn this from them. But on the other hand, when we talk about younger group, they have their strength. They are quite dynamic in the market. They are problem providers. They are more adapted to technologies. Then that's their strength. How we senior people learn from that. So I think from the business leader or HR perspective, how we adopt all this strength from different groups to come out a longer term of business plan or strategy, I think is quite crucial.
Well, in a previous conversation, you mentioned that some companies are now doing reverse training, where it's the junior, younger employees that are giving training to their more senior colleagues. Is that how companies are trying to address these issues? How common is that among Taiwanese companies?
It's definitely happening. I would say it's not many. Around all my client base, I would say it's around 15 to 20%. And what they did is that we call it reverse mentoring. It's not just senior people mentoring junior ones, but also junior people try to share their strength with senior people to do their reverse mentoring. I think it's not just about the productivity or result between this mentoring stage. I think it's more about how they can understand each other more to create the collaboration and to create the synergy. I think this is even crucial than the result of a business or productivity.
Well, I want to bring the conversation to more tech aspect of the hiring process and talk about AI. Because according to a 2025 report from Test Gorilla, a Netherlands-based pre-employment assessment platform, 65% of companies in the UK and the US now use AI in their hiring process. Of that, around 60% use AI tools to write job descriptions. A similar share use it to screen resumes, while just over half rely on AI to source candidates. What may be surprising is that 1 in 5 use it to interview candidates. So, Laura, for companies in the US and the UK, over 94% of employers who are using AI in their recruitment process say that it has brought improvements. Is that a sign of things to come?
I think we need to be super careful with the use of AI, because whilst it's good at pattern recognitions across big data sets, so that initial screening, do people have the basic qualifications we're looking for, that can be helpful at that level. What's problematic is that when it's screening, it doesn't understand any nuance. It doesn't understand different ways that people might have developed experience or built skills. It's looking for the things that have already happened in the past. And essentially the problem is that if AI is based on existing data sets, and if those existing data sets are biased, then it's going to repeat those patterns. It's going to make the problem worse. What we need to see is that if AI is being used, it's being used to look at evidence and bring it forward for the person who's making the hiring decision, rather than replacing the person making the hiring decision. We also need to be really mindful that if you're using any sort of technology to replace that human interaction, the selection process is a two-way thing. It's not just about the recruiter selecting the applicant. The applicant has to want to come and work for you, and you're building the start of a long-term relationship. If at the very start you're doing things like essentially saying, you're not worth our time to even interview face-to-face, we're going to use technology for that. How does that start that relationship off when you go to work for the organization? You're not building, the strong relationships that you're looking for with the organization there. So I don't think AI is there yet. I think it has quite biased data sets that it's using. We know that some organizations have built those selection processes and had to withdraw them because they've been biased against particular groups, usually against particular ethnic minorities or against women in the hiring process. So it's something to be super careful of, but also, there is also the potential to save money when you have massive numbers of people applying and you need to reduce them down. So things like screening out because they don't have basic qualifications, yeah, fine. That's an easy task, and we're quite safe to use it for that.
Well, Will, what is the situation in Taiwan, Technology Island, after all? How are companies using AI, and are many of them adopting this tool?
Well, based on my observation, honestly, since my group of clients, they tend to hire more senior people from us. We didn't really apply much on AI tool to do, CV screening, interview process. We didn't do much on that. I think the point is that the value they want to see from the recruiting firm is that we're not just providing CV, because if we're doing matching CV, they don't need us. What we need is to provide a analyst of a candidate's not just things on the resume, but also their personality, our observation, our consulting analyst. So I don't think it's quite adopt in the market. I understand, but I also heard from I also perceive that in the industry, for example, that's a F&B, food and beverage, or that's a retail. When the entry-level candidate are really with big volume, and they start trying to leverage the tool to do like quick screening to roll down those candidates that say, for example, a bit too jumpy, not consistent in their career path. So they can do the really basic screening instead of deep diving into what they really need to found on the candidates. So it's happened in certain industry, but not across all the industry.
Well, Laura, the potential of AI tools doesn't end with just looking at CVs and kind of screening for very basic incompatibilities. Reportedly, some tools are able to predict job performance even from things like micro expressions and vocal patterns. Now, this intuitively doesn't seem very reliable, but do you consider assessments like this to be reliable? And if not, then how can we prevent companies from doing that?
Yeah, it's quite difficult because there is some evidence that this works for some people, but it doesn't work for everybody. And the problem is that people have different micro expressions depending on their sort of cultural background. Aspects of neurodiversity might impact. Some people might not actually display a lot of emotion in their face, and that might be then picked up by AI as lack of interest or lack of caring because they're not showing some positive metric that they need to use. Essentially, employers want tools that bring return on investment, and this is an example of something that's actually quite expensive to develop, and the research isn't showing it's going to be beneficial in terms of making valid decisions. And if you're not making valid decisions, if it's not recruiting the people that you want to recruit, then hopefully that means it will sort of die a death quite quickly there.
Well, Will, to sum up today's discussion, the workforce will continue to shift. We'll see Gen Z and then Gen Alpha enter the workforce. Technology will keep advancing. So what would be your recommendation to young people looking for jobs right now or in the near future?
I think my suggestion to you is that we just need to embrace what's coming. Either is your group of people are more, let's say, talk about Gen Z or Gen Alpha, or we talk about technology. We need to be embrace that. We need to be dynamic to the changes. But we think of the topic we discussed. I think one thing I'd like to mention is in this world, we should not try to tag people in certain bias. I think we should see each group as individual. So let's say I still met like lots quite good junior talents that for me they are just like Gen Y. They are knowing what they want in a company. They are really loyal. They are really coming to their career rather than just themselves. And I also know some senior employees that they've been at a company for more than 1 decade. Their lack of motivation, their lack of to be dynamic in their work. So I think it's never should be an issue of certain group. It should be an issue of individual. When we can see these things, we can see things in this way, then there won't be a bias and tag. And we don't need to talk about Gen Z issue. We just talk about how we can assist everyone, optimize every talent in their work environment or their career.
Laura, what advice would you give to young job seekers today?
I think to stay positive, because I don't think the market for young people is very positive at the moment, and to be open to as many opportunities as possible, the real danger of AI is that it takes away the junior jobs that then train you for those higher level, those senior roles, because it's easier to do those tasks with AI. And it's really important that young people ensure that they keep doing a wide range of things to build their skills, and be open to whatever jobs there are, and not think about, oh, I want to be in this job over here because that job over there might not exist in 5 years' time. Be open to anything that's out there.
I totally agree with what Laura just shared. I would say I would further recommend one thing, that constantly think about what's our value in this AI or dynamic world. If we can use AI, and what's our strength in the market, so we should keep developing those strengths. Then we can then live with AI together. Or why not? Or we could be replaced by AI. So always think about something that we can't be replaced, and stay in the front in the technology.
Thank you, both of you, for sharing your expertise. You pass my evaluation for being fantastic guests on the show with flying colors. Laura Dean in Sheffield and Will Lin here in Taipei. Thank you again.